1 in every 3 people over the age of 45 gets a blood test and walks out of their doctor's office with a lifetime prescription for statins. No explanation, no alternatives, no conversation about what caused the problem in the first place. And here's what makes that number even worse: 75% of the cholesterol in your blood isn't coming from your food. Your own liver is making it right now every night, and your doctor almost certainly didn't tell you that. They're not going to bring this up at your next appointment. The system makes money when you stay on medication, not when you fix the root cause. Subscribe and hit like if you want real answers. I am Dr. Q, and help me reach 100,000 subscribers, and let's build something the healthcare industry doesn't want to exist. Most people walk into a clinic with a belief that sounds simple, logical, and almost impossible to question: that cholesterol is something dangerous, something harmful, something that must be eliminated from the body as much as possible. And this idea has been repeated so often, across television, internet, doctor's visits, and even casual conversations, that it has become a kind of accepted truth, something people don't even stop to analyze anymore. But here is where the real problem begins, because this belief, although popular, is incomplete and in some cases completely misleading. Because your body is not fighting cholesterol, your body is actually dependent on it for survival. And the moment you start seeing cholesterol only as an enemy, you stop asking the right questions. You stop looking deeper into what is actually happening inside your system. And that is exactly why so many people struggle with managing their cholesterol levels despite making what they believe are the right changes, because they are trying to solve a problem they don't fully understand. Now think about this for a moment. Every single cell in your body, from your brain cells to your muscle cells to your skin cells, is surrounded by a membrane, a protective boundary that keeps the cell stable and functional. And that membrane is not just made of random material, it is structured, organized, and strengthened by cholesterol. Which means cholesterol is not just present in your body, it is actively holding your biological structure together, and without it, those membranes would lose their integrity, become unstable, and eventually fail to perform their function properly, which tells you something very important: that cholesterol is not optional, it is essential. And this is something most people are never clearly told when they are advised to lower their cholesterol. But the role of cholesterol does not stop at structure, because it also acts as a raw material for some of the most critical processes in your body, including the production of hormones that regulate everything from your mood and energy levels to your metabolism and reproductive health. Hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone all rely on cholesterol as a building block, which means if cholesterol levels drop too low or become imbalanced, it can directly affect how your body functions on a hormonal level, something that becomes even more significant as you age and your natural hormone production already begins to shift. And then there is vitamin D, something that millions of people across the world are deficient in, especially in regions with limited sunlight exposure. And what most people don't realize is that your body uses cholesterol as a starting point to produce vitamin D, meaning cholesterol is directly linked to your bone health, immune system, and overall vitality. And when you start looking at it this way, you begin to see that cholesterol is not just a number on a blood test, it is part of a much larger system that keeps your body functioning properly. On top of all this, your digestive system also depends on cholesterol because it is used to produce bile acids, which are necessary for breaking down fats and absorbing nutrients from the food you eat. So if cholesterol production is disrupted, digestion itself can become less efficient, leading to a cascade of other issues that may not seem directly connected at first but are part of the same underlying system. So before we even begin to talk about lowering cholesterol, we need to pause and correct the most important misunderstanding. The goal is not to eliminate cholesterol. The goal is to understand it, to recognize where it comes from, how it behaves inside your body, and what actually causes it to become a problem. Because once you understand that, everything else starts to make sense, and the approach you take becomes far more effective. Now let's move to the part where most people make their first big mistake, because the moment they hear that their cholesterol is high, they immediately turn their attention to food, and they start cutting things out. Eggs disappear from breakfast, butter is replaced, red meat is avoided, dairy is reduced, and everything becomes about removing fat from the diet. And while this sounds like a logical step, it is based on an assumption that is only partially correct, because food does play a role in cholesterol levels, but not to the extent most people believe. Here is the reality that changes the entire perspective. Only about 20 to 25% of the cholesterol in your body comes from the food you eat, and the remaining 75% is produced internally by your body, primarily by the liver, with contributions from other tissues as well, which means the majority of your cholesterol is not coming from your plate. It is being created inside your system as part of a natural biological process, and this is the part that most people never fully understand. This is why you often see situations where someone follows a strict diet, removes almost all sources of dietary cholesterol, sticks to what they believe is a perfect plan, and yet when they go back for testing after a few months, their cholesterol levels have barely changed, and this leads to frustration, confusion, and sometimes even guilt because they feel like they have done everything right and still failed to see results. But the truth is they did not fail, they simply addressed only one part of the system while the larger mechanism continued to operate unchanged. The liver, which is responsible for producing most of your cholesterol, does not stop its activity just because you changed your diet. It responds to internal signals, hormones, energy levels, and metabolic demands, which means if those signals are still telling the liver to produce cholesterol, it will continue to do so regardless of what you are eating, and this is why focusing only on diet without understanding these internal drivers often leads to limited results. This also explains why certain foods have been unfairly blamed over the years, for example eggs, which are often avoided due to their cholesterol content, even though the body has a regulatory system that adjusts its own production based on dietary intake, meaning if you consume more cholesterol from food, your body can compensate by producing less, at least to a certain extent, which makes the relationship between diet and cholesterol far more complex than a simple eat less fat, lower cholesterol equation. So the real takeaway here is not that diet does not matter, but that it is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. And if you want to see meaningful changes in your cholesterol levels, you need to look beyond just what you are eating and start understanding how your body is regulating cholesterol internally, because that is where the real control lies. Now let's go deeper into what actually controls cholesterol inside your body, because this is where the real story begins, not in your diet, not in what you see on your plate, but inside your liver where a silent system is constantly working, producing cholesterol based on signals that most people are completely unaware of, and this system is not random. It follows a rhythm, a pattern that is influenced by your daily habits, your hormones, and your metabolic state, and once you understand this rhythm, you begin to see why so many people struggle to control their cholesterol despite making visible lifestyle changes. Inside your liver cells, there is a specific mechanism responsible for cholesterol production, and this mechanism becomes most active at a time when you are not even thinking about it. During the night, while you are asleep, your body is not inactive, it is performing some of its most important biochemical processes, and cholesterol production is one of them, which means the majority of your cholesterol is actually being created when you are not eating, not moving, not consciously controlling anything, and this is why timing becomes a critical factor that most people ignore. Think about your typical day. You focus on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You think about what to eat, what to avoid, but very few people think about what happens after their last meal, and that is where a major part of the problem begins, because when you eat late in the evening, even if it is something small or something you believe is healthy, your body responds in a very specific way. It releases insulin, and insulin is not just about sugar control. It is a powerful signal that tells your body to stay active, to keep processes running. Now imagine what happens when this signal arrives at the exact time your body should be slowing down. Instead of entering a resting state, your internal systems remain active, and one of those systems is cholesterol production. So instead of reducing output during the night, your liver continues producing cholesterol at a higher rate. And this happens silently, without any immediate symptoms, which is why people don't connect their evening habits to their long-term cholesterol levels. This is what makes the problem so difficult to detect, because the cause does not feel dangerous. Eating something late at night does not feel like a risk. It feels normal, it feels harmless, and over time it becomes a habit that you don't even question anymore. But your body does not see it the same way. It responds to every input you give it, and when that input keeps your system in a high-activity state during the night, it gradually contributes to increased cholesterol production over weeks and months. And the most important thing to understand here is that this is not about one single meal or one single mistake. It is about patterns, repeated behaviors that slowly shape how your body functions, and once those patterns are established, they become the default state, which means your body continues operating in a way that supports higher cholesterol levels even if you make occasional healthy choices. Now let's reverse this pattern and see what happens when you change just one variable, timing. When you stop eating earlier in the evening and allow your body to enter a natural fasting state overnight, something completely different begins to happen. Insulin levels remain low, and when insulin stays low, your body activates a different internal pathway, one that slows down production instead of increasing it, and this shift is not forced, it is natural. It is how your body is designed to function when it is given the right conditions. This means that without taking any medication, without making extreme changes, simply by adjusting when you eat, you can influence how much cholesterol your body produces overnight, and this is why some people see improvements not because they changed what they eat, but because they changed when they eat, aligning their habits with their body's natural rhythm. At this point, you start to see a pattern that most people completely miss. Cholesterol is not just about food, it is about timing, hormones, energy balance, and internal signaling, and if you ignore any one of these factors, your results will always be limited, which explains why so many people follow strict diets and still struggle. Because they are trying to control one part of the system while the rest continues unchanged. This is also why quick fixes rarely work, because they don't address the underlying mechanism, they only target symptoms, and when the root cause remains active, the problem continues, sometimes silently, sometimes slowly, but always consistently. Now let's move to another critical part of the story, how cholesterol actually moves through your body, because cholesterol itself cannot travel freely in your bloodstream. It needs carriers, and these carriers are what determine whether cholesterol is being used effectively or becoming a risk, and this is where the concept of good and bad cholesterol comes from, although those labels are often oversimplified. Your body packages cholesterol into particles that act like transport vehicles, delivering it to cells that need it and removing excess when necessary, and when this system works properly, everything stays in balance, but when there are too many particles or when the system becomes overloaded, problems begin to appear. When there is excess cholesterol circulating in your blood, and your cells have already taken what they need, the remaining particles have nowhere to go, and this is where they begin to deposit into the walls of your arteries, slowly forming plaques, and these plaques do not cause immediate symptoms, they build up over time, narrowing the arteries and making them less flexible, and this gradual process is what eventually leads to serious conditions like heart attacks and strokes. What makes this dangerous is not the presence of cholesterol itself, but the imbalance in how it is being managed and transported, and this is why focusing only on lowering cholesterol without understanding how it moves through your body can lead to incomplete solutions. One of the most challenging aspects of cholesterol-related problems is that they develop silently. You don't feel plaque forming in your arteries, you don't notice the gradual narrowing, and by the time symptoms appear, the process has often been developing for years, which is why prevention and understanding are so important, because once damage reaches a certain point, it becomes much harder to reverse. This is also why regular testing and awareness matter, because they give you insight into what is happening inside your body before it becomes a visible problem, allowing you to take action at a stage where change is still possible. It is also important to recognize that not everyone responds the same way. Some people have genetic conditions that affect how their body processes cholesterol, meaning their system cannot remove excess efficiently, and in such cases lifestyle changes alone may not be enough, but these cases represent a smaller portion of the population. And for most people, understanding and adjusting their habits can lead to significant improvements. When it comes to diet, the goal is not elimination but balance, reducing excessive saturated fats, avoiding processed foods, and focusing on whole, natural options that support your body rather than overload it, and this approach is far more sustainable than extreme restrictions, which often lead to inconsistency and frustration. Meal timing, as we discussed earlier, is one of the most powerful yet underutilized tools. Simply by avoiding late-night eating and maintaining a consistent overnight fasting window, you allow your body to regulate itself more effectively, reducing unnecessary cholesterol production without any additional effort. Energy balance is another key factor, because when you consistently consume more calories than you burn, your body remains in a state of excess, and this excess signals your system to continue producing and storing energy, including cholesterol, and this is why weight management plays such a critical role in improving overall metabolic health. Adding soluble fiber to your diet can help remove excess cholesterol from your body by binding to it and preventing reabsorption, creating a natural pathway for reduction, and this is a simple yet effective strategy that supports the body's existing processes rather than working against them. Omega-3 fatty acids also play an important role by influencing internal production mechanisms and supporting heart health over time, but their effects require consistency and patience as they work gradually to shift your body's balance. Regular physical activity improves circulation, supports heart function, and helps regulate cholesterol transport, making it an essential part of any long-term strategy, and even moderate activity performed consistently can produce meaningful results. When all these elements are combined, diet, timing, energy balance, fiber, healthy fats, and movement, they create a system that works together, and this integrated approach is far more effective than focusing on any single factor in isolation. The biggest mistake people make is trying to find a single solution, a single food, a single habit, or a single pill that will fix everything, but your body does not work that way. It responds to patterns, to consistency, to the overall environment you create through your daily choices. At the end of the day, cholesterol is not something to fear. It is something to understand because your body depends on it, and the real risk comes from imbalance, not existence. And when you learn how to manage that balance through informed decisions, consistent habits, and a deeper understanding of how your body works, you move from reacting to your health to actually controlling it, and that shift is what creates long-term results that no quick fix can ever match.